If you're building or revamping a management system and you're thinking about using ChatGPT or some other AI tool to write your management system, stop! Not because ChatGPT isn't smart, it is. But because if you do it that way, you're going to end up right where you started, with a management system nobody used. Hi, I'm Miriam Boudreau with Miro Management Solutions. We help companies become ISO or API certified by providing consulting, auditing, training, as well as our web QMS software. In this video, I'm going to tell you a real-life experience that might open your eyes about using ChatGPT or other LLM for creating your management system. A few weeks ago, I asked someone on my team for their honest opinion on something important, something I really needed them to weigh in. What I got back was beautiful, well-written, neutral response. Almost too perfect. That kind of reply that makes you go, okay, that's nice. Now tell me the truth. Tell me what you really think. It was the kind of generic, hand-washing, safe answer that you expect from a PR team, or better yet, from ChatGPT. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't the associate writing. This wasn't from their heart. This was written by an LLM. And wouldn't you know it, I asked ChatGPT to analyze it, and it told me there was 60% chance that it was written by, well, stick till the end to know what really happened. And this is the honest truth. I had encouraged my people to explore AI, and many other companies, many managers and executives are promoting the use of AI. I wanted them to be more efficient. I thought I was like, hey, look what I found out. I am, just ahead of the curve, ahead of the game. But this experience really made me pause. Because what I realize is this: when you lean entirely on AI to do your job for you, especially in some things like a management system, you remove yourself from the process. Your experience, your context, your people, and the words, they start doing the same. So everybody removes themselves from everything. Here is the real problem, and this brings me to what I really want to talk about: the danger of letting ChatGPT or any AI build your entire management system for you. See, from the moment I started working in ISO and API standards, this has been the question that everyone has asked me, or that I have seen. How do we get people to use our management system? Now, of course, at Miro, we have developed our process on how to optimize this, but still, sometimes people don't use it. And executives, managers always want to know, how do we get people to use the system? That has always been the case, and will probably continue, is how do we get people engaged? How do we get people to participate? How do we get people to write an MOC when they have a change? How do we get people to write a corrective action when they see a problem? Or how do we get people to enter a CIP when they see an opportunity to improve? How do we get people to follow procedures, to follow the work instructions, to enter those calibrations? Just how do we get them to participate on this improvement effort? And let me tell you over and over again, the answer is not by doing it for them. See? If you do it for them, they won't follow. And if you have ChatGPT do it for them, then guess what? You are back to where you started. Whether it's a consultant doing it all, or now ChatGPT doing it all. If the people who are supposed to follow the procedures didn't help build them, they won't use them. You might get compliance on paper, but you won't get real engagement. And if there was a small sense of compliance, it will fade away by next year when it's all forgotten. That is one reason why we tell our customers, when we're helping them, that we need to help them implement a management system that they will be able to sustain on their own once we leave. The last thing we want is that everything gets done this year, but once we leave, by next year, nobody's following because either it was too difficult, it required too much manpower that you don't have, nobody understood it on the first place. That's why we always put in place systems that people can follow on their own and that can only be accomplished if they participated themselves in putting it together, because they know what they can and cannot do. Now let me give you some real examples so I can try to get my point across. One time I was helping a company with their quality management system, and I asked them about their processes. And instead of walking me through what they actually did, they asked if I had ever helped a distribution company like them before. So I said, yes, I have. Their next question, well, can you just copy what you did for them and give it to us? I was like, that is not how ISO works. No. Yes, I help another company like yours, but you is you. You have your own processes, you have your own people, your size of company is different than their size. I cannot just copy. Sure, there are some procedures like support that it might be similar, but even then, they didn't use our software. Are you using our software? That in itself will create different processes or procedures. They have different departments, they have corporate, maybe you don't. So you cannot just copy that. Another time I asked a company if they had a safety management system, and they proudly handed me this big binder. I opened it up and it was kind of like a little bit generic, generic safety manual. And they told me they had bought it online and they were proud of it. They told me they use it to comply with tenders and bids, sometimes with ISNet World. So I asked, does anybody follow this? And it was like silence, Nobody even knew really what was in there, but they had a safety management system manual. And these aren't rare cases, really. These are mainstream. These are documents being sold out there, and people may use it and say they already have a management system. But does any of the employees follow it? Very unlikely. Well, guess what? If you're using ChatGPT to build your system without involving your team, then you're doing the same thing. You're not buying a binder online, you are buying a digital binder from ChatGPT for free, actually. No one is going to follow it. And honestly, no one really should. If your goal is just to pass the audit, then sure, go ahead. Just get that management system built by ChatGPT and see if it passes muster by whomever you choose as your certification body. You might even pass, especially if that registrar is not even accredited. But if your goal is to build a management system that actually works, that improves your operations, your culture, your bottom line, then you cannot cut people out of the process. Why do you think ISO 45001 has a whole clause called consultation and participation of workers? Because systems built in isolation, no matter how technically perfect they are, they fail in practice. You want buy-in? Then go to the people doing the work. Sit with them and ask them how they do it. Document this with their input. Review it with them. Improve it together. That's how you get people to follow procedures, because it reflects reality, but also you're making it part of the process. You're making them part of the game. You're giving them some stake at the process. You want an SOP that really sticks? Then do what I say. Sit with a technician who's been doing the job for 10 years and ask them how they do it. You're gonna get gold, and you'll get their respect. Then you'll get their engagement. And you know what? If you're truly paying attention to what the technician says, you will see there are gaps. You will see where those gaps are. And then improvements will follow. But what happens when you skip the people? See? If you skip that and you just ask ChatGPT to write your procedures, guess what? You might end up with a beautiful SOP designed maybe for a 5,000 person manufacturing site when your team is 12 people maybe. Of course, you can ask ChatGPT to adapt it, right? But still, it's not yours and it will never represent what you do because it's not something that everybody else does. And maybe that's what your company is successful or that's what you have an edge on other competitors is because you do something unique. You might even get some generic procedures if you ask ChatGPT that says something like inspect item as per specification, but really no one knows what that specification is. Or worse, you get something that looks great to your leadership, but no one on the floors really understands it. And then what happens? You are back to square one. You've got a binder, digital, full of procedures that no one uses. So what should you do? Use ChatGPT as a brainstorming partner, as a tool for formatting, refining, or organizing your thoughts. But do not skip the work. Do not skip the people. Build your management system with their fingerprints on every page because when they help you build it, they will help you live it. They will help you improve it. And that's how you avoid the trap. That's how you build something people believe in. So going back to my original story about the associate and ChatGPT telling me that it was 60% probability that such response had been written with an LLM. Well, let's just say that ChatGPT was 40% sure it was 100% AI written. And yes, I saw the proof. This was a good reminder, again, why shortcuts don't lead to buy-in. Let your people speak. Let them build your system. Let them own the system. Because when they do, then you won't need to enforce the system. They will enforce it for you. They will already be living it. In fact, let me give you another story in our practice. There's a process that we call the continual improvement process, or CIP, and we have one of our apps also. And so when we are helping companies implement their ISO or API management systems, we have a very rigorous process that we go through to make sure that they own the system and they are involved. And it's funny because when we make mistakes after a while and they know what they're doing, it's funny when we see them saying, yes, you did that wrong. Can I issue you a CIP? And instead of getting mad, I will always be like, good call. I'm glad you're saying that because it means you understand the process. You want to issue me, the consultant, a CIP. So they have understood what we are trying to put in place as opposed to just like, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, but I'm never gonna write that. Now it's like, hey, should I issue you a CIP? I hope this video was helpful in your journey towards ISO and API certification. Thank you so much for watching and stay awesome and stay compliant.